G2 just beat Top Esports at MSI 2026, and they didn't just beat them, they reverse swept, which makes this the 6th reverse sweep at an international tournament in all of LOL Esports history. That's insane, and it follows a trend of G2 having the mental resilience to reverse sweep, much like they did against Maokai domestically in the LEC in, I believe, winners finals. Long story short, right? Actually, I think it was winner semis, but not important. Point is, incredibly historic win. It doubles down that G2 can not only beat Eastern teams at an international, but they can beat an LPL style team, since Top Esports is literally an LPL representative. There is so much to be excited about, and yet, sincerely, why do I now come away from this series with a bit of doubt? Well, that's what we're going to get into this video right now. So, to get started, the first thing you need to know about this matchup between G2 and Top Esports is that we have known for quite some time that this was all but guaranteed to be a matchup at this MSI. I actually, after going over it, and I'll explain to you what I mean, I'm pretty sure there was no other way this could have happened. I think G2 was guaranteed to play Top Esports because, based on the results from First Stand, where the LPL and LEC were the top two regions, right? They were the finalists. That meant that BLG and G2, the winners of the LPL and LEC respectively, would come in as the only two Pool 1 teams, despite the fact that we had Lion, for example, who was also the number 1 representative from one of our top 4 regions. Same thing with Hanwha Life, who was a number 1 from the LCK. They were considered to be Pool 2. The second representative from the LPL, and the LPL uniquely got a guaranteed second seed simply because of their victory in First Stand. Top Esports would come in as the Pool 4 no matter what. The other Pool 4 was going to be whatever team qualified from the play-in stage, which, as we now know, was T1. Because Top Esports was guaranteed to be a Pool 4 team, they were one of the 2 potential teams that BLG could go up against, but at the very least, I believe in the first round exclusively, you are not allowed to have a domestic same region matchup. So LPL cannot play LPL, meaning Top Esports has to go to the only other option from Pool 1, which was G2 in the LEC. Maybe you guys knew that already, and I'm just going over information you already know, but I just figured, since I just learned that, I figured I'd go over that with you guys too. And that is very important for why I am concerned about this victory with G2, among other things. And we'll talk about that in a moment as well. Now, given that G2 was going up against Top Esports, there's a little bit of historical context, not just with Top Esports, but also G2 and Top Esports. So number one, Top Esports famously is, I actually made it in a previous video that's currently unlisted, so I don't even know why I'm talking about it. I made mention that Top Esports is sort of like Fnatic, a team that rarely manages to outright win the LPL. They always somehow manage to qualify for internationals, though, and yet, despite all the hype that comes in, where this is the year that Top Esports is able to do it, they have 2 former world champions in Tian and Jackie Love. They always manage to underperform internationally for whatever reason. By the way, I am filming in my hotel in Chicago, and so shout outs to me. Actually, link in the description to my Patreon. I know I was been plugging it in my last few videos, and I'm going to continue to do so. And I appreciate you guys in the comments who were saying that you can't support financially, but that you're going to support via subs and views. That's all I could ever ask for. But if you are in the financial position to do so, I would much appreciate any patrons that would be willing to sign up. I promise you, every dollar is going to go back into going full time, making the green screen videos, and it's currently listed on that Patreon, but if you sign up, you will get a shout out at the end of every single main channel video. And I'm going to be making, not yet, but very, very soon, sort of like at the end credits with all your guys' name listed at the end of every video on this second channel as well. That's something to look forward to. But if you can't support financially, of course, please do consider subscribing. Double check that you are still subscribed, because YouTube sometimes unsubscribes you for some random reason. And yeah, that would be super beneficial, since I'm going to be reaching out to sponsors very soon. And subscriber count, it goes a long way into making brands take you seriously. So anyway, thank you so much for the detour. Anyway, I'm double checking that I am... Yep, okay, perfect. So, the other historical context, other than Top Esports being an underperformer internationally almost always, is that most recently they played against G2 at Worlds 2025 in the knockout stage. And in that scenario, I remember Many people were saying that that was G2's probably best possible draw, other than possibly CFO, if you guys remember at the time, and CFO was very good. So arguably, having them play against Top Esports, who barely made it out of the Swiss stage. I don't know if you guys remember that horrible best of 3 series against BLG. But Top Esports was considered to be very bad, and they ended up 3-1ing G2, which was a massive disappointment for, EU fans like myself. And the thought was, then Top Esports would ultimately get 3-0'd, I believe, by T1. I don't remember. Don't shoot me that I can't remember off the top of my head. But long story short, it just goes to show that Top Esports was not very good, and yet G2 could still not overcome them, right? So now we come into this tournament, right? G2 has a golden opportunity to go up against Top Esports. And the last key piece of information is that usually when we look at an international tournament, we talk about all the representatives from the LPL and LCK as contenders to win the entire thing. But notably in this tournament, everybody's talking about Hanwha Life, T1, and BLG, but it is ubiquitous. Everybody knows that Top Esports is at the very least a cut below the 3 of them, right? And that's why it was very interesting, because many people were saying this was going to be a test to see if G2 or Top Esports were in that kind of 4th place spot at the least, right? I myself have the copium that is hoping and believing that G2 is capable of actually doing damage, making the top 3 bleed, if not outright winning the whole tournament. So, long story short, yes, this is a very exciting matchup to make to see who is just below that top 3 and who's going to be contending with them. All right, so we get into the actual series. Now, I want to say one last thing, and this goes into that reason why this kind of series made me doubt G2. So given that they knew, so G2, I talked about this, Psychopathic Poro, my boy, talked about this leading up to this tournament. G2 very clearly dominated the LCK at first stand, and the LCK had a very particular style, whereas the LPL and BLG, as the main representative at first stand, apologies for all the noise, has a much more aggressive style. They play way faster. They fight over almost everything. And that was something G2 had to know coming into this tournament. They wouldn't be able to play the style that was successful both at first stand or even domestically in LEC. As we saw with Carmine Corp, they tried to bring their LEC style, or at least what was working in spring, to the international, and they weren't prepared meta-wise. And I also just don't think, I think the meta was really the biggest issue there. So I was concerned that G2 needs to be extremely aware of this, because if they don't make the adjustments, they will fail, even if they come in first stand form, right? So they had all this time to prepare against Top Esports, but we get into game 1. So the draft goes as follows. One thing I want to point out most notably is that they permabanned Bard, I think, through all 5 games. They might have let it slip through game 5, and they had Camille banned as well. These are the 2 picks that, number 1, Keria had popularized extremely, especially the Camille. I think the only way you could get it any more aggressive than this is to throw in Pyke as a 3rd ban as well. I think this also shows a massive amount of respect to Lebrov, who, in my opinion, not to spoil the end of my opinions on this series, I think Lebrov was the star of this series, and my God, kudos to him. People gave it to Skumon, and I'm going to preach this until my face is blue. It's such a classic example of kind of more casual fans, and I mean, literally the analysts do it too. They always give credit to the guy that has the best scoreline at the end of the day, not realizing who is the playmaker that's actually allowing that star to shine. In this example, I think it's Lebrov who was the determining factor as to whether G2 won or lost, much more than Skumon, and we'll get into that in a moment. Anyway, I see the Bard ban and the Camille ban as massive respect towards Lebrov. Top Esports first picks Varus, G2 picks Rumble Ashe, and you would expect that they would pick Seraphine on the 3rd pick to kind of make that a full, apologies for that's even distracting me. You would expect that the Seraphine would combo with these 2, right? You do the massive charm, you throw the Rumble ultimate on top of it, Ashe can free fire from the back. Really good combination, classic combination, but instead on 3, we get Braum. I was thinking maybe this is in response to the Nautilus, because Nautilus is a good answer into the Ashe Seraphine. You can get some early game leads. But nonetheless, we get the Braum out. I wasn't super happy about it. We then get the Olaf, and then we close out G2's composition with the LeBlanc. Now, one of the most common things that people say about Olaf picks and Nautilus picks is that you want somebody to be able to dive with those picks. It's not good enough to just have a Nautilus, just have a Nocturne, and just have an Olaf. You need an Enchanter typically. That's why, like, when GX played it, they had Shen support on June. Usually you'd want a Lulu, just something to empower those champions. Nocturne famously loves to get Orianna Ball so he can dive in and then get the shockwave off of it. That could have worked here as well. And they didn't even pick Orianna. Top Esports didn't. But G2 banned it, sorry. So anyway, that to me felt like this draft was not very cohesive and it didn't know what it wanted to do. In addition, with Ashe, you would imagine that she wants someone to give her space, and I guess technically Braum is serving that purpose, but dude, Top Esports completely counters their draft with both the Mbessa and the Nefiri, which not only are able to just completely ignore everything from G2's side and just get directly onto Hans's Ashe, but on top of that, it also helps with really locking down the typically evasive and mobile LeBlanc, which happens in this game. Now, I wish I had, these plays better set, and I don't really want to go game by game, play by play, but I will say in this game, what was the narrative of this one? It was Caps extremely underperforming. Extremely. Look at this play that he tries to take. The wave is pushed up, which forces Cream to have to step up if he wants to contest or just get any minions himself. This is a perfect angle for a gank, number one, but number two, just a situation where you can bleed out Cream a bit, and you'd either need him to call let's just say his support or Tian. I just don't feel confident in saying his name right off the bat. But anyway, Cream would usually need to get assistance to get people to break this wave state. We get Caps engaging, but he misses the chains, so Cream does not have, there's no hard CC in this matchup, or in this situation. LeBrav is here, so he's also prepared to go in, and Olaf is here as well. He throws the axe, but ultimately, Caps just reverts back because he missed his hard CC. Cream just gets away from melee distance and now just starts chunking out Skumon, and he barely lost any HP himself. Caps, on the other hand, is probably at least like 5 to 10% lower HP than Cream, and yet despite this play clearly being over and Skumon almost dying, he decides to go back in anyway, even though, I don't know, I was looking at it, I'm like, I guess, no, he's up 8 CS. I don't know. I think you could crash it. I don't know if he feels like he has to force this because otherwise he's screwed. I'm not sure. But long story short, he goes forward and just gets solo killed by Cream. And this, again, I'm not going to go play by play, but basically throughout the rest of this game, later on, Caps is 0-4. He is like all of Top Esports' kills. On top of this, the other narrative in this game was that I forget how you say his name. It's like, it's not, because you don't say Juion or whatever. It's like Jaeon or something like that. Let's just say Jaeon for now. It's not that, but whatever. Jaeon completely outclassed BB, especially on this Rumble. They managed to, even when Broken Blade had the push, Tian, dude, was smurfing literally everywhere on the map. There was one good play by Skumon early on that we're going to see in just a moment, but otherwise Tian was perfectly capitalizing on Broken Blade being out of position. He would get Broken Blade's flash and then get a repeat kill off a repeat gank. We could see it here. This is massive. Look, BB still has his flash, but he's trying to back, gets his recall canceled here, and then Jaeon then cancels his back once more. Here we have Tian looking to kind of lane gank, which is brilliant. But Skumon either reads the play. I would have to go back and actually watch the game more closely to get kind of the context of how this play happens. But Skumon's here to cover, and they find a brilliant kill onto Feng. Damn, man. The support of Top Esports, I apologize. And then Hansama finds a really great, brilliant arrow here that lets them get a double kill. So it looked like Tian was going to focus top side while Skumon was going to focus bot side. G2 consistently throughout the entire series, also with the exception of, I think, only games 4 and 5, were getting the first 2 Drakes like every single game, which you would think would put them in a better situation, but they were kind of failing elsewhere on the map. So by the time it became like, 3rd or 4th Drake, and now it's a full-on 5v5 team fight for every Drake, G2 was just too behind to do anything. Top Esports would usually have a better position, and they would just take it. Anyway, Here we can see Caps. This is actually so unfortunate. He's so, like, actually kind of smurfs this. Takes all the minions, but Neferi's such a broken champion that literally the tower is now just targeting her dogs. So, unfortunately, Caps cannot outplay this despite dodging the ultimate. The arrow whiffs. He literally gets Tian to commit his ultimate to the clone, which is insane. But then Tian is just able to dive him and takes 2 turret shots and is still like half HP and gets to clear the wave. It's ridiculous. Not really much else I want to say here other than, again, referring back to the draft. Skumon finds a few good moments and he is ahead. Oh, just give me 1 second because I realize now. Oh, no, I am still connected to the Wi-Fi. That's good. Okay, cool. So, Skumon is ahead at certain points and looks like he can carry fights, but like I said earlier, he doesn't have an enchanter to like allow him to survive and really carry here. I think it's another big thing, and I talked about this in my last video about KC. I think teams sometimes don't. Teams need to be more focused on 1 or 2 people to carry through instead of kind of having multiple points to kind of carry through. Like, you have a Rumble who doesn't like to weak side, right? Because you want him to be ahead so his ultimate does a substantial amount of damage. Obviously, Hansama, I don't know, this doesn't seem like a situation, like Braum is not really a great roaming support, like a playmaker. He's more defensive, right? So you want him on the Ashe to protect her against people like the Neferi. Now, granted, they picked Braum before the Neferi came out, but that's not the point. The point is, this just goes to show that I feel like the draft here was a bit disjointed, and they were trying to accomplish too many things at once without having a single focus. So you have your Ashe and your Olaf that want to do 2 different things, and you're not really giving either of them the right resources. I think Seraphine would have worked so much better. You'd have the synergy with the Rumble, synergy with the Ashe. You could also technically empower the Olaf. I think the Braum pick was probably the worst one here, and when you consider that LeBron, again, in my opinion, was the real driving force of these wins, putting him on a champion like Braum that can't make great plays across the map is super limiting to kind of the key player on your team. When we go to game 2, anyway, they lose, whatever. When we go to game 2, this is another example, and I remember literally by the end of this game, because they lose this one, again, it's a reverse sweep, I was thinking like, wow, this reminded me so much of G2 2024. I was like, well, I'm like, we got Copium for nothing, we're going to fail, da-da-da-da-da. I actually had faith because usually Skumon on Jhin and especially Caps on Ahri, them both together and individually on these champions are usually very strong. Hansama on Yunara, although Yunara is not super meta right now, I had a lot of confidence, and I think he did make really good plays in this game. But ultimately, first of all, again, Jian, or I think that's his name, really outclassed BB at the beginning, but then BB did find good moments, including most notably a solo bolo on him, and I think he also solo bolos Jackie Love later on in the game. But it was, first of all, Feng Hui, let's say that, Feng Hui, man, I freaking heard Draco say his name like 20 times. I can't remember it. I apologize. But Feng Hui found really monster engages on the Nico. That was something that the casters pointed out themselves, that it was super crucial for somebody on G2 to be marking him both on flanks and also, making sure that we're, counting minions, checking about if we see a champion on the map, is that really that champion or is that Nico, right? And there were 2 big engages. The one that I remember the most notably was when G2 was on Dragon, or I think they were on Dragon, and Feng Hui was on that like blue buff, red side, blue buff bush, and comes out from there, and Hansama man dashes and flashes, but still gets caught on the outer edge of the Nico ultimate and gets slammed and gets followed up on by Tian, who ults on top of him and just gets popped. And I think in this situation, Hansama, there's a world that he could have carried if they played a little bit better, but I think just all things were off. Tian was smurfing on Skumon. Skumon had like 0-0-0 scoreline. His teammates were dying, and Tian was ahead in camps and was making plays all across the map. So there was really nothing that Skumon was doing outside of, I think, getting the first 2 dragons, if I'm not mistaken, or the first 1 dragon at that. So Skumon really lacked in this game. Labrav, despite being on not a playmaker, but being on an enchanter, he did phenomenal, saving so many plays, being at the right place at the right time in so many different scenarios that actually saved Hansama, for example, among many others. I do apologize, I can't remember all the plays off the top of my head, but if you go back and watch that game, Labrav was really the hero of that game, being everywhere he needed to be, and I want to give him his flowers. And at the end of the series, like preview of the ending here, he spoke to the desk and said that he feels extremely confident on both enchanters and engage picks like Rakan, who was played later in the series. I 100% agree. Jesus Christ, Labrav is playing everything, like literally the best of both worlds, like incredible. I know I've talked, this is so random, but I'm just thinking about it. I've talked about Oscar Ridden being good at both weak side and strong side, but then like BB being the weak side master and Kana being the strong side master, all of this in 2025. Labrav is literally outperforming Bucio at Enchanters and Alvaro at Engage. It's fucking insane. Anyway, I don't know if he's outperforming them, but he's literally like, I would not pick them over Labrav at this point. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so unfortunately, I also think Caps was like okay in this one. I remember thinking that one of the things that this draft was really lacking was like the CC, and I think they were relying a lot on Caps to hit his charms, which he was not throughout this game, unfortunately. So he fell short here. Caps was not having a good series up to this point. Hansama was playing well. I guess you could ask him to track Nico better and play a little bit safer. Hansama tends to be a more aggressive AD carry, but long story short, he ultimately, I don't knock Hansama for falling short in this series, in this game. And Broken Blade, I think, played well. Could have played a little bit better because Tian really did have his number at the beginning of the game, and by the end, even though he was able to win certain little skirmishes, it didn't end up mattering. So yeah, at this point, things were looking really grim, but then we get to game 3. Again, same freaking Bard, Camille bans to start. So this is where I think Skumon and Labrav finally, kind of got the game back in their hands, and it's because they gave them playmaking tools. Skumon with CC. So Skumon was absent in the first 2 games. Who did he play in game 1 again? Oh, he played Olaf. Yeah, that's a champion that wants to farm up so he can carry games late, and he needs his other teammates to do the kind of setup for him. Whereas here on the Skarner, Skumon is able to go in, not get punished as hard. He has the CC himself to set up the plays so that the damage dealers can do their thing. And my God, is that exactly how this game went. Skumon and Labrav were just running the map. I don't know why Labrav went execute. I don't know if it really made that much of a difference if he did a significant amount of damage, but he was just able to like bob and weave in so many fights, made so few mistakes. He made like one mistake where after a really good fight by the dragon, he face checked Tribush and got killed because Top Esports had a pink ward in it. But long story short, if you go back and watch this game, he played phenomenally. I want to say Broken Blade also played really well, even though Tian was still punishing Broken Blade super hard at this point. There's a really funny play, if I could find it quickly. It's definitely really early in this game. Anyway, if you guys watch Twitter or go on Twitter or whatever, you'll see it. The Caps kind of grabs with Syndra's like pull or whatever, grabs the Scuttle Crab and brings it all the way to mid lane tower, and Tian just completely like sees red and just goes in 1v3 under the tower, ults, and they just CC him and he dies and doesn't even get the crab successfully. Skumon outsmites him. So just a ridiculous play, and this is where Tian starts to fall apart. Tian had a really good early game at best, but things started to fall apart very quickly in the mid game. Feng Hui also started to slip up. They first of all lost the 2v2, Jackie Love and Feng Hui against Hansama and Labrav. Hansama was playing extremely well. But yeah, this game was Skumon and Labrav the game, followed by, Caps and Hansama just having to sit back and do some damage. Caps especially did not do very well at the beginning, and I said that because he gets a pentakill in this game, and I just want to be very clear. Caps did not have a good game here. He kept ulting really early in fights, and they kept getting saved by the locket, Iron Locket of Solari from Thresh, as well as the Lantern. So, and he was also doing it when they had really high HP bars, and all he had was Blackfire Torch at most, and I guess Hextech Rocket Belt, which Caps seems to be running on almost every single champion. Jesus Christ. And what's it called? Yeah, it was just really awkward. I don't understand why Caps kept ulting so early. He died 2 times, and I guess I'm kind of looking at it here. I thought he died way more. But yeah, Caps was not playing super well in the beginning. I'm telling you, Skumon and Labrov were what made this game winnable for them, and Caps just kind of had to be there and do damage. And Hansama, I think, individually played really well, especially in lane in the 2v2, as well as some skirmishes outside of that as well. I think he played really well. There's only one big mistake that Hansama made where he was in mid lane bush by the Baron as Top Esports were collapsing on G2, and G2 were on the other side of that wall. So bush and then wall or whatever. They're on the other side. Hansama reveals himself really quickly to just get like an auto attack on Cream, and that just reveals him to the entire side of Top Esports. So they dive on top of him and he dies. That was like the biggest mistake that I saw from him. Broken Blade also played phenomenally on the Kled as per usual. It's a really good counter pick into Sion, which helped him establish a pretty substantial, not really substantial, but a solid lead in the early to mid game. And then he was very good at diving the backline and getting onto Jackie Love. And I forget who followed him with the ultimate. It might have been Labrov, but yeah, G2 just started to hit their stride in Game 3. Game 4, this one, oh my god. I thought this was such a weird draft from Top Esports, especially with Jian being on Tristana top. And at first, he finds a really good trade onto Broken Blade, but once again, Broken Blade clearly was getting into his groove by this time, because despite getting massively put behind, especially with his HP bar, he's able to stay in lane without dying. And there's even a really crazy play where he kind of like, he doesn't even know he's on a ward in the first bush in top lane. Tristana fakes like she's backing, so she goes into the third bush, and I remember the whole time being like, holy crap, he's literally gonna die, he's literally gonna die. But then he kind of baits Tristana to come in, and then Skumon finds the Q onto him and gets him killed because Juan got baited, basically. Really cool play there. The other really cool thing, dude, I thought the Lucian Milio was such a bad play, and I will say I thought it was fucking bad because besides one ultimate, I think that Lucian did well. The rest of them were zoning ultimates. This was such low damage. Hansama, low-key, I really love him, so I'm not trying to flame him, but low-key, high-key, a passenger besides Game 2. And I forget, Game 5, who did he run? Yeah, low-key a passenger here as well. He did not play very well. In Game 4, huge passenger energy. I will say the best part of the Lucian Milio was the Milio. His enchanting was keeping all of the freaking G2 boys alive, which was already amazing, even if we were just in a traditional front-to-back 5v5, but especially because a lot of the damage from Top Esports' side was a lot of poke. Oh my god, like, you really need to go see some of these fights where G2's health bars would get so low and then they would just get massive shields from Labrov. He, again, dude, I'm telling you, player of the series, not Skumon. Skumon was second player of the series, but fucking Labrov was number 1 for sure, dude. Anyway, this game, what I really liked, Caps really turned it around, and it's kind of crazy that not only on, you would expect a TF to be like a setup for other people, but he was actually doing mad damage and confirming kills for his teammates, not just setting up plays for the rest of them. And then when they were ahead, they played macro near perfectly. They played patiently, they didn't overcommit. Despite the fact that they were ahead at many times, and this is a theme that also goes through in Game 5 as well. G2 played extremely patient, did not feel pressured, slow played it. This game, there were so many moments where Caps would play distraction. I think I might be getting Game 4 and Game 5 a little bit confused, but in both scenarios, Caps was doing the exact same thing. Like, if a fight was going bad by the Dragon and let's say G2 lost a member, Caps would be on the other side of the map either TPing to it or just was there already, taking down a tower, getting an inhib, or just outright trying to end the game. Massive credits to Caps for just doing an absolute macro masterclass and forcing Top Esports to lose something despite winning the fight. They would win a little bit on the fight and lose massively on the map. Shout out to Caps in this game. And yeah, Skumon was more like cleanup crew, because after Caps would make monster engages where he would literally do his TF ultimate into the middle of Top Esports, he would ult near them, which was crazy already. Then he would just like throw a card, do his like Q or whatever, and then he would just Zanya's in the middle of all of them. By so much time, he flashed out of a particular fight where he was in the middle of 5. Caps, really shout out to him. He played awesome. And I think he was kind of like the winning recipe of this game, along with Labrov, like I said. Broken Blade was not the best on the Gnar ultimates, although ultimately he did find some, no, was it him or was it, it was Skumon who really was the one targeting Jack 11, really getting on top of him, canceling some key ultimates, and just knowing when Jack 11 didn't have his summoners up, so he could just nosedive him in the back line. Anyway, we ultimately win Game 4 here. The final game, Game 5, so this one had a drafting controversy. I'm sure you've seen it through Cadral Clips. So basically, there was a lot of flex picking here. So the first pick, Anivia, originally we thought that was going to go mid lane, but then it turns out that we get Mel on 4, which completely recontextualizes the Anivia. Now we realize it's going top, but Top Esports had already picked, first of all, Pantheon, who was likely meant to go into the hands of Tian in the jungle. And then we get Yone on 3, and that was meant to go mid lane to counter the Anivia, but then because the Anivia was going top and Mel into Yone into Mel was probably not an ideal matchup, all right? That meant that they were thinking about putting Yone top. Then they also picked the Maokai already, and then they were thinking, and the Maokai was picked before the Mel, so then they were thinking maybe we should put Maokai into the jungle instead of in the bot lane, which, now that I think about it, I mean, it was Pantheon Zig, so maybe it was Pantheon support the whole time. But anyway, there was a controversy, and it led to like a 15-minute pause, I believe. I scrubbed through it because I watched the series this morning, or this afternoon. But basically, yeah, it was just like a cool technical difficulty, and I don't really give a shit about the technical difficulty part. I really just care to point out that there was a lot of flex picking going on that really threw off Top Esports, and I was really impressed by G2 being able to pull that off in Game 5. And so finally they picked the Ornn. The biggest thing here was that at the very beginning of the game, I'm talking level 1 pre-minions, Lebrav actually went topside with Broken Blade, and they chunked out Ornn big time, which forced him to back extremely early. Broken Blade had a CS advantage. Xian had to pop his teleport extremely early and just come back with a refillable potion at most. Really set him behind massively. And then in addition, again, Lebrav was playing Rel like Karia's Camille. I'm telling you, dude, he was playing phenomenal. He was all over the map, making so many plays. I don't even think Skumon had as much presence as Lebrav did. No, Lebrav was crazy this game. And on the micro side, there were just things he was doing, like surviving with his W, managing to escape some really close calls. Like there was a play where Cream was, Yone has that execute on his E. And dude, he just like sidestepped a key Yone Q to survive. Dude, Lebrav was just playing out of his mind. Hansama in this game, again, really big passenger energy, and I was kind of disappointed because I was hoping that, especially on the Sivir, he would do better. But in a lot of fights, I think he was just pushed up way too aggressively, and he would either get chunked out to the point that he couldn't stay in the fight and had to play super far back and barely do any damage, or B, outright just get picked off in key moments in fights, which is really disappointing. Meanwhile, Caps, on the other hand, was really thriving on the Mel and was finding a lot of success with it, so kudos there, right? So I think the really last bit of context that I want to give in regards to this series is, well, number one, the way this game ends is G2 having a massive lead, and yet they were up like, I think 11k at one point, as you can see on the screen here. Maybe you can, I'm just going to move up a little bit. Despite the fact that Top Esports got the first 2 dragons, G2 was on pace to get Dragon Soul, Hextech nonetheless, which was very impressive, or would be very good with their comp, especially for Hansama, getting a bonus attack speed and the chain lightning between all the enemy champions. The final thing to go over is that even despite being massively ahead, and I guess you could give kudos to Top Esports for managing to make these late game fights difficult despite the wallet diff, G2 did not overforce their hand. Even in those difficult exchanges, they would typically come out with at least even deaths on both sides, which would typically be a bad thing for G2 because they have shutdowns to give over. But a lot of times G2 would come out with typically one person ahead and turret damage or outright towers taken, right? So I think G2 just showed a lot of confidence here, a lot of patience, and a lot of mental resilience. And this goes into the fact that, I know I talked about this, I believe in not my last video, but the second to last video, that G2's addition of perks has been super beneficial for their mental resilience. G2 coaching staff, I'm going to make a video about this some other time, but G2 at this point is bigger than Caps and arguably even bigger than Skumon because of their coaching infrastructure. It just is so insane. Lebrav also spoke to Isma, who is their performance coach, and said he legit 1v9s, which is so true because G2 is just They even brought in perks. Despite all the resources that they have, they decide to bring in another staff member to just make sure they're covering all their bases and they are as prepared as physically possible for these matches. I think it's so impressive, the mental resilience they're showing. And it is, you could see, Skumon in particular is a very emotive player. You could see how frustrated he gets, how tilted he gets when things are going wrong. But they're able to go backstage, which is so difficult. And I'm just highlighting this because I think it's so underrated that they are able to go backstage and come out with a new mindset. And famously, at the end of this series, BB is screaming into the mic right at the end as the Nexus is falling on Game 5. That's why I said we never give up. Super impressive stuff from the side of G2. So with all of that being said, why the hell did I say that this series left me feeling nervous? Well, because number one, like I said at the beginning, Top Esports is not favored to win this tournament. They're not even considered to be in the top 3, right? We're looking at BLG, T1, and HLE, who likely have a massive gap between them and Top Esports. And on top of that, G2 knew to prepare for Top Esports. So you could argue, in theory, they are preparing for how to play against the top 3, right? But you know you're going up against Top Esports. If they thought that there was a possibility of going up against T1, of going up against HLE or BLG, even though seeding-wise that would never happen, but if they thought that could happen in round 1, then I could understand them being less prepared like they seemingly were in games 1 and game 2. But the fact that they knew they were going up against Top Esports and they seemed caught off guard with A, the way that Top Esports wanted to play, and B, especially in the drafting department, especially in games 1 and 2, that led a lot of concern for me. And I would like to think, I have a lot of faith in this G2 roster, so I am just being kind of like extra critical, I guess you could say, to an extent. But if they had this much time to prepare against an opponent that is not the most formidable here, I want to have the faith that G2 will rise to any occasion, right? So if they go up against T1, and this is very T1-esque of G2, right? T1 can sometimes look sketchy against like an MCOY, like they did at Worlds Swiss stage in 2025. Like that game 2, I think it was game 2. I don't think it went to 3 games. Game 2 of the Swiss best of 3, which was an elimination game, T1 kind of kept it close, right? It looked a little scary against MCOY, and I don't think MCOY really is supposed to be able to contend with a team like T1 who goes on to win the World Championship, right? But then, despite looking shaky in that series, T1 goes to the World Finals and dominates, right? And it was a 5-game series, so respect to KT. But the point is that T1 is able to step up to the level of their opponents no matter what. And I would like to think that G2 is going to be able to do that as well. But it is a little bit scary, and especially with the drafts of Game 1 and Game 2, I think the biggest concerns that I have, number one, is Caps. Like I said, in Game 3, people are going to look at this, and maybe that pentakill just brought Caps the confidence he needed to kind of step up in Games 4 and 5. But I just want to be clear, Games 1 through 3 were not good on the side of Caps, and Games 1 and 2 were not good on the side of Skumon. And I think it wasn't until Labrov, again, connected with him and got more agency through the champion picks, that he was able to then connect with Skumon and make really devastating plays across the map that G2 was able to thrive. I think Broken Blade super struggled against GN, and again, we're looking into a Zeus or potential Bin matchup. Doran, I guess, a lot of people don't respect him as like a world-class number 1 or number 2 top laner in the world, so maybe Broken Blade's going to have a decent shot at taking down Doran, but when it comes to Zeus and Bin, that is really scary, and I'm worried that BB is going to fall short, especially at the beginning of the series. Maybe later on in the series, it'll be different, but I'm not so sure. So yeah, I think Tian really outclassed Skumon without help from his support, most notably, which I think is really substantial. Again, my MVP of this series is Labrov, which is a massive change from how I used to talk about Labrov, I should say. I've been glazing him a lot recently. No, Labrov for sure. I think Hans was rough and a little bit absent. I think his best performance was Game 4 on the Game 3 on the Xayah, and Lucian, he wasn't horrible on it, but it wasn't really anything special or significant, and his ultimates were really lacking. Anyway, I guess there's legitimate concern. I'm so happy, so impressed, and I think this was a well-deserved win, and there's a lot of positives to it, especially on the mental resilience side. But I also think that I don't this could easily get very overhyped very quickly. I think HLE is going to be a massive test. I think they're very aggressive and very aggressive, and they're going to be sharper than what top esports was like in this series, especially with a jungler like Kanavi. That's like Tian on steroids there. So long story short, I do think Labrov should probably be better than Delight. No, is it? Yeah, it's Delight. So I think he should be better than Delight, and that should be a potential win condition there. But anyway, overall, really ridiculously cool series. HLE 3-0 Team Secret Wells. Who would have fucking thought, you know? That was obvious. But anyway, I'm going to be covering tomorrow's series. Mostly going to be talking about BLG versus T1. But since this is my last day in Chicago, I should have more time to watch all the games. People are saying that people are really, like, literally they just said on the desk that Furia is being underrated as hell right now, and I think Lion is not overrated, but just, you know, an NA1 seed isn't that good. So I don't know. Team Liquid surprised us, so maybe Lion will surprise us as well. But I'm expecting that actually might be a really contentious series. That one might be interesting. I'll cover that one way more briefly, but I still might have a lot of cool things to say, and I'll be sure to watch that one, unlike the HLE series that I just didn't have time to watch. But yeah, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out, definitely consider checking out the Patreon if you guys are able to, and yeah, consider subscribing as well, because again, that would help out the channel. I will be doing outreach to brands probably this week, starting on Monday. I already have a few ones that I'm excited about reaching out to because they're genuine brands that I use. I'm not just reaching out to any brand. I'm actually reaching out to ones that I think you guys might like. You'll see more about that hopefully when I get a deal and I get to talk to you about the products that I think are really cool. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I will catch you guys next time. And sometimes I have to check my recording because I'm always like, oh my God, like, am I recording? No, I recorded the whole thing. Also, I got really thrown off when a few people came up behind me and they were on my right. I don't know if you guys saw that. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out.